Hi everyone, Adam Gore with Clemson Extension here, and we've finally reached the part in our turf renovation series that everyone gets really excited about, which is seeding. So in this video we'll talk about how to do the proper rate, how to put it out, the prep work before it and after it, and all the little tidbits that we need to know to get a good established seed out into our yard. So prior to us putting the seed out, the very first thing we want to do is scout the grass, which is where we drop the mower to the lowest setting and we run it through, and you can see the height difference on the left and right where the left has been scalped. So we're opening up the canopy a lot versus the right, which is at its intended height.
So this is after I've run a dethatching rake over the yard. First I scalped it, and then I ran the dethatching rake over it in two directions. And all I was trying to do was open up the soil some, get a little bit looser. You can also do this with a garden rake and just opening up some little trenches for the seed to fall into.
So when it comes to the seed and putting the seed out, you might notice that the seed has a coloration of blue or another color that you wouldn't expect. And what that is a fungicide that is coating the seed to protect it from different kinds of rots and pythiums. And once we are putting the seed out, normally on the bag there will be a recommended rate whether you are establishing or re-establishing a lawn, and that really plays a role on the rate. The heavier rate is going to be if you're establishing the lawn versus a lighter rate when you're seeding it, or lighter rate when you are renovating it. So when you're putting the seed out, make sure you're going in two directions to get even coverage. So once you put the seed out, the next thing we need to do is make sure that that seed is actually into the soil. So there are a couple different ways you can do it. Some people will simply rake it, but what I've done is I've actually made my own seed drag made with an old piece of rug and a little bit of rope. And with that, I will go and drag over the seeded area 2 or 3 times, and what this does is it helps put a little bit of soil on top of the seed and also smooths it out so we don't see as much of a rough appearance. So whereas I use my drag to put a little bit of soil on top of it, some other methods that people will use to prevent their seed from washing away and to prevent it from loss of other critters like birds and squirrels and whatnot is they'll apply a layer of mulch or a little bit of straw. In commercial turf, they actually will bring in more soil in a act called top dressing. And all we're trying to do is put something on top of that seed to prevent loss. When you're adding the soil on top of it, it actually increases that seed to soil contact, which is crucial for germination. But for me, using that drag will really help limit the loss from birds, because birds are visual feeders. They want to see the seed for the most part. So with that little bit of soil on top of it, we really don't have to worry about it as much. So the last thing that we really are going to be doing after we seed is keeping it watered. For germination to happen, water has to break through the seed coat of the seed to really trigger the germination. And once we have when we have a wetter environment, it helps with the germination and with the first rooting. So we want to keep it well watered throughout. And then in next week's video, we'll see how our progress is going, and we'll talk a little bit more about when we can start backing off of that irrigation. But for now, we're just going to keep the first 2 inches wet, and we'll go from there. But if you have any questions or comments, feel free to drop them below, and we'll see you next week.